You've probably been hearing that word a lot lately, right? Stagflation. And yeah, it sounds pretty complicated. But to really get what it means for us today, we need to take a trip back to the 1970s, to a pretty wild economic experiment. It's a story that uncovered a hidden playbook, and folks, it might be happening all over again. So, first things first, what is stagflation? Well, the best way to think of it is as the economy's two-headed monster. Seriously, one head is breathing the fire of inflation, making everything you buy cost more. The other head? It's freezing the job market, causing unemployment to creep up. It's this painful, nasty combination that for the longest time, economists thought was impossible. You see, for decades, this monster basically broke all the rules. The old thinking was simple. An economy had one problem at a time. Either things were running too hot and you got inflation, or things were slowing down and you got unemployment. It was a trade-off, one or the other. But then, bam, the 1970s hit, and suddenly both monsters crashed the party at the same time. The old economic playbook? Totally useless. So how did this happen? Well, here's our game plan. First, we're going to get to know this monster a little better. Then, we'll rewind to the Nixon shock of the 70s that kind of unleashed it. We'll uncover this really radical strategy they used, a so-called deficit vacuum cleaner. And then, we'll connect the dots and explore the seriously unsettling echoes of that strategy in our world today. You have to understand, the arrival of this two-headed monster back in the 70s was a genuine system-wide shock. Policymakers were just completely caught flat-footed, realizing all their old economic maps were suddenly useless. And to really get how this monster was born, we have to go back to one single seismic event that just tore up the global economic rulebook. I'm talking about the Nixon shock of 1971. This right here is where the modern story really kicks off. Okay, so picture this. After World War II, the US was basically the world's factory. It was a surplus country, and it helped rebuild Europe and Japan under a system called Bretton Woods. But by the late 60s, the whole situation had flipped. The US was spending way more than it earned, flooding the world with dollars. The system was at a breaking point. And so, on August 15th, 1971, President Nixon made a drastic move. He completely severed the dollar's link to gold, changing global finance forever. And the sheer audacity of this move? It was captured perfectly by Nixon's Treasury Secretary, John Connally. He famously told his European counterparts, "The dollar is our currency, but it's your problem." I mean, wow. In other words, America was rewriting the rules of the game, and the rest of the world was just going to have to deal with it. But here's where the story gets really interesting. This wasn't just crisis management. A truly radical new strategy was taking shape. The plan wasn't to shrink the U.S. deficit. It was to weaponize it, to turn it into a giant financial vacuum cleaner to suck up the world's money. The idea, which was championed by people like future Fed Chair Paul Volcker, was just completely counterintuitive. I mean, think about it. Instead of tightening its belt, America decided to spend even more. The U.S. would run bigger deficits, import more stuff, and in doing so, reshape the entire global financial system to its own advantage. So how on earth did this vacuum actually work? Well, it was a surprisingly simple four-step process. First, the U.S. starts running these huge trade deficits, right? Buying up German cars, Japanese electronics. This sends a flood of dollars overseas. So second step, what are Germany and Japan going to do with all those dollars? Well, they send them right back and invest them in Wall Street. They're buying U.S. government debt, stocks, real estate. And just like that, in this brilliant judo move, the rest of the world was now financing America's spending. It was a pretty remarkable strategy, wasn't it? It allowed America to become even more powerful, even as it went deeper and deeper into debt. And that, my friends, brings us to the big question. Are we seeing the exact same playbook being run today? Okay, so that was the playbook of the 1970s. But if we fast forward to today, you start to see some pretty striking parallels. According to the analysis we're digging into, that same core strategy is being rolled out right now, just with a whole new set of tools. Let's just put these two playbooks side by side for a second. In the 70s, the dollar was devalued. Today, we're seeing similar pressures on the currency. Back then, domestic policy was about keeping wages down. The modern version, as economist Yanis Varoufakis points out, involves things like stablecoins, basically privately issued digital dollars to reshape finance from the inside. But check this out. The global goal is identical. Use America's central position to vacuum up the world's capital. Only this time, the engine isn't just Wall Street. It's big tech and AI. So if the playbook is so similar, are we just in for a repeat performance? Well, not exactly. There's a dangerous new variable in the mix this time around, escalating global conflicts that are just pouring fuel on the economic fire. And this is where the squeeze on you and me becomes really intense. Global conflicts drive up energy prices, which creates what's called cost push inflation. You feel it every time you fill up your car, and with less money left over, we all buy fewer things, which causes overall demand to fall. When demand falls, businesses slow down, and that leads to layoffs. And there it is again, right? The two-headed monster, inflation and unemployment, pinching our household budgets from both sides. This geopolitical piece of the puzzle is the critical difference. Some analysts, like Yanis Varoufakis, argue that this modern strategy could have actually worked if it weren't for this energy-driven inflation. In his view, recent administrations have gotten tangled up in foreign conflicts that jack up energy prices, which directly sabotages the economic game plan and makes these stagflationary pressures a whole lot worse. So we're left with this final, pretty unsettling question. We see a historical playbook being dusted off and run again, but this time it's happening in a world with new, unpredictable, and frankly, dangerous conflicts. And it really forces us to ask, are we just watching a rerun of the 1970s? Or could it be that this time the finale is going to be something far more turbulent?